Hello, friends. Welcome to the show. This episode was brought to you by EcoFloatingHome.com. We personally live, work, and broadcast from our floating studio here in Coron, Palawan. Our studio was built with the best attributes of floating yachts, floating homes, and waterfront villas. It also has the benefit of being self-sufficient, sustainable, and economically friendly. It's 100% carbon neutral. Live in comfort and luxury. Enjoy the life between sea and sky. Check it out at EcoFloatingHome.com. Looking for quality outdoor gear? It's ROX, the biggest outdoor superstore in Southeast Asia. Your most trusted outdoor brand in one store. Your source for high quality products and outdoor information. Go check it out. It's ROX.
Radio check, radio check, radio check. This is the Explorer's Pod over.
4, 3, 2, 1. Hello, good to see you. I'm very, very appreciative. Thanks for doing this. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you so much for having me, guys. It's awesome to meet up.
Yeah, man. So, first of all, I'd like to say congratulations to you and so many of your accomplishments. You're an absolute savage. Good on ya.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Radio check, radio check, radio check. This is the Explorer's Pod over.
4, 3, 2, 1. Luke, what's up, buddy?
How's it going, Todd? Nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you. Where are you at right now?
I'm visiting my parents in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, on the East Coast.
Far out.
I go back to the Tetons in Wyoming on Monday. So
okay, so you're enjoying a little of the holidays with the fam.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Yeah.
How's it feel to be back home?
It's good. Yeah, it's good to catch up with some friends here, socially distanced, and see my folks, and interesting times with COVID and all, for sure.
Makes it hard for free spirits like us, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you guys live on a boat. That's really cool. How long have you been doing that?
Oh, God. I took off when I was 26 years old. I took off to sail around the world. So I've been living on boats half my life, really. I was pretty full on into climbing. I was living in Yosemite and came home from Yosemite. I had a girlfriend in Vancouver, and I was living in Bellingham. And I was like, where am I going to live, dude? I've been living in tents out of the back of my car. And I went and looked at all these rooms, and they were all just white, stark rooms, no furniture. And I just couldn't imagine my tent in there and a sleeping bag. And I found this little boat down in the harbor for $3,000, and I offered to make payments on it, and boom, that's how it all started.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I've told him a little bit that we're in a floating home right now. So.
Yeah, so we spent a year, we just tried to reinvent our life again, and last year we built this house that we're in right now. It's a floating home, and it's totally off the grid. And it's 100% carbon neutral. We got water maker and then waste treatment center for everything. And
Awesome. What's the name of the boat?
The home has a name, and it's called a Mihan Star, which means cool northeast wind.
The name of our daughter, yeah.
It's the name of our daughter, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Cool.
Okay. Very cool.
So, hey, dude, we're just going to roll with it. We're rolling. We're recording right now.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
So, you're back home, and you're going to head back to the Tetons. Are you there for a while now with the COVID thing? So, is it kind of shut you down in the Himalayas for a bit, and you're spending your time back in the Tetons?
Yeah, I have a house in the Tetons now for a couple years now, and it's really home base here in the U.S. just because of the vertical relief of the Tetons.
Yep.
So it's just great to go out and from the parking lot get 6,000 feet of vert. So it's really good prep for the Himalayas. That's what really attracted me to the Tetons, and just also the snowpack there is consistently good at the start of the season. So for a while, I would start the season in the Tetons and then go over to Kashmir in the Western Himalayas. And so it was a great place to start the season for the winter months of skiing overseas. But so yeah, I will be there planned until the end of January, and then go back to Kashmir if it's possible in February, or potentially Pakistan. I'm not really sure. It's kind of up in the air, like with a lot of things now.
Right.
So.
Yeah. So you're just kind of on standby, sort of what happens with the travel restrictions for you to sort of get going again.
I may end up being in the Tetons for the winter. It's really, really hard to say, but it may be the best call.
Sure. So we're all on standby. We've been guiding expeditions, not as full on as you, I'd say, but we've been in the Himalayas for about 10 years, off and on, doing some peak climbing, and also just some like Everest Base Camp treks with friends and stuff. And then we guide over here. We have a boat where we take people on like 5-day trips from Corona del Nido. And so that's been sort of our livelihood for the past 10 years. But as of March 15th, they shut everything down. No one's been allowed in or out of the country for about 250 days, I think now. And it's pretty strong. I mean, we even had a time where they locked us down in our houses for 2 weeks. We weren't allowed to leave our houses. Even if you wanted to go to the bank, you had to give an official your bank card. It was pretty out of hand. We were like, oh, my God. Thank God we had some money stashed away, in the
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely. I think it's just tricky to be in charge right now. It's like you want to manage the COVID problem, but also, I mean, life's got to continue on. So
I wouldn't want to be the boss today. Get ready.
Great. All right. Let's do it.
Okay. Welcome, Luke. Thank you really for your time, and thank you for being with us. And for our audience, tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit of a background.
Great. So I'm pretty focused on climbing and skiing the Himalayas, and I have been for about a decade. I've made 75 expeditions there over the past decade. And prior to that, I was in Alaska for a decade. I grew up on the east coast of the U.S. Then I was in Colorado for a while, then Alaska and Himalayas. That's kind of a bit of my background. I work as a mountain guide and also as a ski mountaineer for some companies as an athlete. So focus on some personal ski and alpinism projects in the Himalayas. And then I also, in between that, I do some guiding there. So that's kind of what I do for a living. And currently I'm focused on the Himalaya 500, which is trying to ski 500 ski lines in the greater Himalaya, which to me is from Pakistan to Bhutan and even over into Myanmar. So that's what I'm currently on, and about halfway through with it. So that's kind of a bit of my background.
All right, man, badass. So I was lucky enough. My father was huge into skiing. He was on the ski team, when he was like 6 years old. We grew up next to a mountain called White Pass, Washington. So I could cut school like half a day. And I'd split and I'd get half a day on the mountain. It was like 40 minutes from my house. So I was really lucky to get involved with skiing in the mountains pretty young. Pretty grateful for that. Yeah. I read that you grew up in North Carolina. Where did it all start? When did you start climbing and strap on the skis?
I get that question. People are like, "You're from North Carolina?" Let's get into this. I started when I was 5. So we started going up to West Virginia to ski the hills here. It's really, to people out west in the U.S. and even globally, like the skiing on the East Coast and the mountains on the East Coast are pretty small. But that's where I got started, was here in West Virginia, and also in the hills, mountains, the Appalachians in western North Carolina. And we started making trips out west too when I was a kid. And that's really where I started skiing. And then I started climbing through some outdoor programs here in America, Outward Bound, when I was 12. And then that kind of led into climbing a lot in high school, and then leading trips for the outdoor program in college. And that led into guiding and just my own interests as a skier and climber.
Okay.
So that's kind of how that happened.
Wow. So let's talk about the Himalayan 500 project. Can you give us a brief background about this?
What's the main agenda?
The main agenda is to bring more skiing to the Himalayas.
Okay.
Like, I think how I see it, at least, is Asia is going to blow up for skiing in the coming decades.
Yeah.
I think. like we see in China. They're claiming they're building 800 ski resorts right now.
Wow.
And then we definitely have the snow and the terrain in the Himalayas for ski resorts to be developed and ski community to be developed. So if you kind of look at the U.S. as a model, like here in the 50s and 60s as like ski areas were built and ski hills when like some of the big outdoor brands were started. I kind of feel like in Asia, that's what's going on right now with a larger development of becoming mainstream to go into mountain sports like skiing and mountain climbing. So really the goal of the project is just to highlight the Himalayas and how much there is there as a destination for skiing. I really think that it's going to happen right now in Nepal. There's guides that are going to France and they're getting trained up on ski guiding and bringing more backcountry skiing there. There is interest for making some ski hills there as well. And also in Kashmir, so over in India, there's definitely the snowpack and the terrain for a lot of skiing to be developed, and over into Pakistan too. And then I have friends working also try to get more skiing in Bhutan as well. There's just a lot of skiing potential in the Himalayas that I think needs to be highlighted. And a lot of folks now who are able to travel for skiing in Asia go to the Alps, or they go to other places in the world where there's great terrain and skiing and snow right there, right there. So there's no need to travel. It's just making it. It's kind of like the whole, if you build it, they will come thing. So
that's cool.
I would like to see more skiers in the Himalayas. So that's kind of the goal of the project.
Yeah, being there quite a bit as well. It's one of the things that I've always wondered as well. Look at, for example, the Khumbu region. I'm going, well, I don't know. I don't know it out west. I don't really know how it references to the Khumbu, but the Khumbu seems so far away, like for a resort. It almost seems inaccessible, but I've been up towards Annapurna, that area, and it seems a little bit more accessible, like the Mardi Himal area. That looks like it might be, fairly close and to a resort someday. I can see that.
Really, I think the Khumbu, it's like I have a friend, he's been skiing for decades in the Himalayas, and he's tried in the Khumbu, and you probably noticed it's quite dry there.
Yeah.
So it kind of works in the winter months, like the ski season for most people, it works from west to east. So like the deepest snowpack is in the Karakoram over into the Pir Panjal of Kashmir.
Yeah.
And then as we work further east, it just gets more and more shallow and less snow. So the storms kind of track for the winter for snow from the west. And then, the further east it gets, the less snow there is. So really in terms of like a ski resort or having something like that, it would be in Kashmir or in western Nepal, in areas that are not up on that edge, like the northern edge, like the Khumbu is. It would be on the foothills and slopes just beneath, the greater Himalaya chain, like out in Humla or places like that.
Okay.
Where it could potentially work. But.
So I want to pull up a clip. Before we pull it up, though, I want to say I've checked out your videos. Man, I dig them. I really like your videos, and I think we need to see more of those. They're too short.
They're a work in progress, but the local story, too, is really the story that he told.
Yeah, I like that. So we're going to pull up one real quick. Young Himalaya, clip 1.
Purna is a place that's, when it comes up in people's minds, it's a place people think about mountaineering, climbing one of the most dangerous mountains on Earth. Yet around that peak is extraordinary ski terrain and consistent snowfall that makes for an amazing ski experience during the months of February and March. And I think what I love the most about skiing in the Annapurnas is the sheer scale of things. You're standing out on these slopes, skiing some beautiful runs of all types. You got big panels you can ski down. You've got these ramps between peaks. There's nice couloirs, but always there's these just massive terrain around you. Just the sheer the feeling of being in the area is very powerful. And so, of course, the skiing's great. We can ski anywhere. But to ski in the Annapurnas amongst the greatest mountains on Earth is a special experience. I think we haven't scratched the surface on how much there is to ski in the Annapurna region. There's just so much.
Okay, man. I'm in. Count me in. So, I'm curious. Do you organize trips like this into the Annapurna?
We use heli access where we'll fly in and then tour for the day. It is a sanctuary, the Annapurna Sanctuary, so I don't think it's real resort potential. I think like anywhere, there should be some places that are left pristine and wild.
Sure, I think we're not talking about putting a resort there. We're talking about you and I doing a trip.
Okay, that's it. Okay, cool.
Okay, so, and I'm curious, so you organize trips in there, and then what kind of experience does a person need, and how do you evaluate it? And how do you organize a trip like this?
People need to have backcountry skiing experience. And really, when groups come, and my groups are pretty small, it's like 3 to 5 or 6 people that can be of varying ability levels or have different goals for the trip. And so it's really, we have 2 guides along, so we can kind of, some people want to do more ski mountaineering stuff and some people want to powder ski. And so how do you organize that? It's just really keeping groups small. I think whenever you try to bring big groups to an area, it really changes the whole, you can't really cater day to day for everyone on the trip. So, and how do you sort out if someone is prepared enough for it? It's just really just in conversation, just chatting with people about what they've done and what may be the best fit. Maybe they need another season ski touring at home, or maybe they're ready, and it's really just chatting with folks about that.
Okay.
So kind of how I figure that out.
Yeah, so for example, let's say I show up and you say, okay, we're going to do some skiing, we're going to do some lines. Are we going to hike all of our lines? So it's pretty much we're going to backcountry, hike a line, climb up an area, and then ski down it? Is that how we do it?
I prefer that method.
Yeah.
I have done some heli skiing in the Annapurna area, but if some of the lines there in the Annapurnas are at higher altitude, so you kind of have these big open panels and flanks beneath the higher altitude terrain. So we either hike that or do fly that to landing zones up to 5,000 meters, so around 17,000 feet. Mm-hmm. Very poor at math, but right around there. But so yeah, there's a few ways to approach that, and it's just really how the trip's organized and how people want to do the skiing. So each trip's different.
I read you really love Kashmir and Himalayan in the far west Nepal. What makes this place so special for you and for skiing, and how accessible is it? What would an average ski or tour or expedition look like here?
For Kashmir, I really love those 2 areas just because of the snow. They just get more snow than anywhere else in the Himalayas. So on a given, what they call a western disturbance, which is a storm that comes in, they originate in the Mediterranean Sea. They come across, in the first major mountain range that they run into is the Himalayas. When that happens, it just creates these storms that'll be up to 2 meters in snow. Wow. 7 feet of snow. So big storms that come in, and it's just, in terms of powder skiing, there's nowhere else in the Himalayas like it. And so for people to go there, the best place is Gulmarg. And Gulmarg has a gondola that goes to 4,000 meters, just under 14,000 feet. And from the top of that gondola, you can tour out and ski all kinds of terrain. Pretty exciting terrain to open intermediate bowls, all kinds of terrain for whatever people like to do. And then also the culture as well. Just Kashmiri culture is what they call Kashmiri yacht, which is the Kashmiri way of life, of just very warm people and very hospitable, and living in this it's just so beautiful. The Kashmir Valley is just amazing. It's this lush valley. There's a lot of apples growing there, and it's very green. And it's very unique from just to the east over in Ladakh, where it's a high desert and a totally different landscape. So
Yeah.
Wow.
that's why I love Kashmir. And then Humla is less developed for skiing. It's really, there's no skiing out there. And so it's just really, it's more of a expedition style. We go out with horses and we set a base camp in these cirques and we'll ski tour out there. And you have the same snow as Kashmir, but it's definitely an expedition type of ski trip. In Gulmarg, you stay in a hotel each night and you ride up a gondola. In Humla, we're camping out in tents and
Okay.
touring each day. So, yeah.
Cool. So
Wow.
Gomar, I'm sorry, is that India or Pakistan? Where is
It is.
It's India.
Yeah,
right?
it's just on the border with Pakistan.
Right.
So it's right on the border there.
So that's probably the most accessible. Is that a ski resort, Gomar? Is it set up for skiing or?
It's a gondola that I like to explain it as a backcountry area that happens to have a gondola. It's like there is a ski patrol in place, and we do have like defined boundaries. Like here's the controlled ski area, where when I was working there, I ran the snow safety program, the avalanche forecasting there. We do control for avalanches in the ski area. We do place explosives and we do ski cutting after each significant storm cycle to keep that area, to reduce the chance of an avalanche in that area.
Right.
So there is a ski area there, but I would say majority of users that go there are going for backcountry powder skiing. Just because when you look at Gulmarg itself, for example, I think like a famous resort people might know is like Jackson Hole.
Yeah.
It's like the size of like 7 Jackson Holes side by side. It's pretty massive. So people
Yeah.
love that. So
Oh yeah, that's cool.
I'm just curious, when you say people go there, who are they? I mean, from what country? Are they locals?
it's growing quite a lot in the past couple of years for domestic tourism.
Okay.
So a lot of people from India are coming up to ski there, but 70% of the international tourism is from Russia.
Oh.
So you can fly into Delhi, and that same morning, usually flights arrive around midnight or so, or just after. And that morning, you can fly into Srinagar, Kashmir, and be skiing that afternoon. So it's pretty quick access for the Himalayas for skiing. But yeah, mostly Russian, but there's also people coming from the UK. There's people who are skiers from Australia that want to catch some powder in the summer months, and they'll fly up. But really people from all over the world. There's people who've started to come from China as well to ski there too. Have an international destination.
So for you to go there, you have to have at least a basic level of skill.
There is good beginner terrain. There is a meadow there, and there's surface lifts, so people can go there to learn. There's great local ski instructors. It is a family destination. There's really nice hotels there. So like if the family comes and someone doesn't like to ski, they can hang at the lodge and enjoy just Kashmiri cuisine and just pashmina. And there's all these interesting things to check out about Kashmir beyond skiing. But also if the kids want to learn to ski in the meadow, there are good instructors. And then also there's the bigger terrain for people who want the challenge.
Yeah.
So.
Sweet.
Okay.
When somebody wants to do an expedition with you, is this part of your service when you're providing ski trips for people, or is it more mountain guiding?
I would say, yes, we're mountain guides.
Yeah.
So we do, as opposed to, there are some folks who do like hotel logistics and setting up things for people in terms of a service, but we're more focused on guiding our own expeditions or guiding our own ski experiences. So one of our trips, we have people who want to learn more ski mountaineering skills. So maybe they've done some backcountry skiing, but they want to get into some bigger terrain and they want to. So Gulmarg's a great spot to do that. So we can go out and talk about some of those skills about using crampons and axes and ropes and how to manage terrain for the current conditions. And so that's one thing we do there. And then also just a 2-week powder skiing trip. So just get out into backcountry areas with the guide safely.
So in remote areas of the Himalayas, daily avalanche forecasts don't exist. Have you ever had any close calls with avalanches?
I have not. As a snow safety director in Gulmarg, I experienced a lot of avalanches because that's your job. Your job is to make avalanches. And so I have been in avalanches there just because during each control morning, a control morning is whenever you've gotten new snowfall or a significant wind event that's deposited new snow. We go in and cut it with our skis and produce avalanches to remove that hazard for the user public. In the greater Himalayas, I've seen large avalanches come off mountains, mostly serac avalanches. So serac's just a large chunk of ice that's part of the glacier, and those will fall sometimes and create large avalanches. And then in 2013, we were in a storm in the Garhwal Himalayas in central Indian Himalayas that brought about 8 feet of snow in 60 hours. And it was, those are some of the largest avalanches I've ever seen coming off, just because you have this huge amount of snow, and then, you have a wall that's, 8,000 feet high. And so after the storm ends, that wants to shed off. And so I've seen some big avalanches, but never had any close calls, just because when you put up base camps, you always put them where the saying is you put it where the grass grows green. So you're down in the meadow far away from alpha angles. An alpha angle is just the run out of a slope. So like how far an avalanche will run, you always have your base camp far enough away from a slope that you're not going to get hit by an avalanche. You stay in place after big storms like that.
Okay.
Wow. Good advice. Thank you. Next time you teach me how to ski. Filipinos, we don't even know what ice is snow.
You know Janet's history, Luke?
I don't.
Yeah, Janet here, her and her team of girls are the first women to traverse Everest. They traversed from China to Nepal about 12 years ago.
In 2007.
Yeah, have you ever seen that movie, Cool Runnings, the Jamaican bobsled team?
Yeah.
Yes, sort of like that.
I always laugh at Jan. I said, you guys are like Cool Runnings because you never saw snow before.
Yeah. When we were there in 2007 in North China, Tibet side, there were two, I'm not quite sure where they're from. They were supposed to ski down from Camp 3 or Camp 2 of North Side. So, yes, there were two people attempting that. So, that was 2007. We're going to climb Everest and ski down. We met them somewhere after the border in Kudari in a tea house. So, that was their attempt. But I'm not sure if they did it or and if ever happened. So, there's a lot of people who are skiing. So, that would lead to my next question. You have skied Shishapangma.
Like the way you climbed Everest is, people say it's like the dream way.
Yeah.
It's like the best way.
Yeah.
Like to climb the north side and descend the south, there's like no better way to climb Everest.
Pretty cool, huh? I'm sorry, let me step in here.
Yeah.
I tell a bit of her story. I probably tell it more than she does because she's so humble. I get to sort of brag about her. But, when they got to the summit, the weather systems are different on the north side and the south side. And she gets to the summit and they're going to go back down the south side. And they hadn't fixed the lines yet because the season wouldn't permit it. So she had to descend all the way down to Hillary Steps without ropes.
Yeah, a little bit
making it a
before
bit
Hillary.
hairy.
Yeah, there was no rope back then, so I was holding on to my Sherpa for dear life for quite some time. So yeah, that was really scary.
Amazing.
Yeah. So the Shishapangma, so one of the 8,000 meter. Tell us about that project.
It was really neat. We stayed late that season. The other teams that were on the mountain left early. Well, the last one, they went over to Cho-Oyu because they were trying to do this double header. So I ended up climbing it I had one guest with me, and then Nima Tenzi was with me too, the three of us. And there was no one on the mountain, same sort of deal. There weren't any fixed ropes. We were just climbing it, and it was kind of neat because we were the only team on the mountain, which I think is pretty special these days on an 8,000 meter peak.
Yeah.
Yes.
Experience without others around. And we had a good summit day. It was long and exhausting. The view was extraordinary. The skiing was ski mountaineering.
Yeah. So it's exhausting on the way up, and you're
That's an
fried.
understatement.
Coming down is usually the hardest part, And then you're going to ski it. How did you feel?
I skied from 7,400,
Mm-hmm.
which is the highest camp up above there. It was the spring. So like really, I think the more popular season for Shishapangma to OU is the autumn season when there's more snow on the peak post monsoon. It was mixed. It was ice and rock above there. So it wasn't really skiable on the route I was on. So I think getting out onto the northeast face, it could have been skied, but that wasn't in the cards because I had a guest with me and that wasn't going to happen.
Okay.
But I'd love to go back.
How long did it take you to climb to the summit?
We had a 15-hour day.
And then how long did you ski down?
The ski down took me a ski down to our highest camp we called Camp 3. Was actually, we didn't camp at 7,300. We camped in the just down below there. That was probably an hour down. It's pretty quick.
Wow,
yeah,
Phil.
to get to there.
Wow.
I bet everybody on your team was jealous.
She was with Nima Tenzi, and the other guys had decided to stay behind and camp. One guy was not feeling well, and what's his name? Galzin stayed with him. Galzin Sherpa. So,
okay.
yeah, that's Shishapangma. But there's a big ski line on Shishapangma that has not been done that I'd love to go back.
You're looking
So
at that.
go
I can
from
tell.
summit.
He's chosen to go back.
So that's part of your plan to go back to Shishapangma. What other 8,000-meter peaks are you planning to do for the 500?
Next summer I'm planning for Gasherbrum 2.
Wow.
So G2, and then I'll go to another route on another peak that I'm kind of keeping quiet for now, just climbing, but it won't be a ski project for the second peak. But that's what I have planned for next year. So
Okay.
Nice.
see how it goes. What about you?
Exciting.
Are you gonna climb another one?
Yes, it's not a closed door. It's still an open door right now. Why not?
Since we have been reading about you, we want to go with you. We want to do some unclimbed peaks, actually. That's really where we're at. We've been talking about this for a while. In fact, last time we were there 2 years ago, I think it was. And we were really talking to people about some unclimbed peaks, but we couldn't really find anybody that was very knowledgeable on how to do it, how to get the permits. But we're curious about that. For example, when you climb an unclimbed peak and you do the route, do you get to name it like the Becky route or whatever like they do in the States, or how does that work?
Well, I mean, to me, I've always thought if I climb an unclimbed peak, I guess you do get to name it. I think it's kind of odd it's like there was a peak a couple years ago. I won't mention any names, but they named it after her last name. And it was just kind of...
In the Himalayas doesn't make sense.
It doesn't. Yeah. So it's kind of... I think things need to be regionally relevant.
Yeah.
So it's like if we're in a certain area, it should be named something that's culturally relevant and just...
I'm with you.
Right. To me, I don't... Yeah, I'm not really into that, and I don't... What else? Just the whole conquering thing, or not conquering any. Yeah.
The only thing that you conquer is yourself, not the mountains, not anything else. Yeah.
Absolutely.
When you say about the naming, you coordinate with the locals and say, "Hey, I climbed this unclimbed peak, this and this."
I've documented. I have notes of everything that I've done. I've taken a lot of photographs, but I haven't ever reported any. I haven't written anything into any of the journals yet, so I've just been keeping my own notes.
There is an agency that's keeping track of a lot of the unclimbed peaks somewhere in Kathmandu.
There are. Yeah, there's like the Himalayan database in Kathmandu, which is Elizabeth Hawley, the journalist who did it from like the days of Hillary.
Right.
When Hillary first climbed Everest all the way to now. There's people that are continuing her work. She passed away a couple years ago.
Yeah, that's right. I read that.
There is her. Or there is that entity, and then you also have the Japanese Alpine Club, and you have the American Alpine Club, and you have all these clubs and organizations keeping track all over the globe. And that's kind of one thing I'm working on too, is a something called the Himalaya Library, which is to kind of bring that all together. And I won't say that all these organizations aren't communicating already and keeping track of things, but it would be nice to have a searchable database that's global.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so, like, I kind of feel like in some ways, some of these areas of the Himalayas keep getting rediscovered, if you know what I mean.
Sure.
It's like, so-and-so goes and climbs this route, and they're saying, we've discovered this new area, when really, like, Jeff in 1974 did it in his sweatpants or whatever. It's already been done. It's
Right.
like there needs to be more of a collective body of what's been done in the Himalayas,
Yeah.
as opposed to having all these different organizations. Anyway, if that makes sense.
Sure does. One of the reasons I would like to get on the unclimbed peaks is when I got into climbing years ago was really sort of the solace of being outdoor and going to places where you were all alone and working out a crag. And, I was doing a lot of trad climbing when I was younger. And then climbing just all of a sudden went berserko. Everybody started going. There was climbing gyms popping up all over America. And then all of a sudden you'd go out to the crag and there'd be a lineup at the crag. And it was freaking me out. I was actually like, man, I don't want to be here. This is my spot. It just got so busy everywhere. And so that search for the places of solace and solitude became, when I got to the Himalayas, I was like, okay, this is cool. There's a lot of places you can go here. But, you got the island peaks and the Labuche. Again, what was freaking me out when I got there is my whole life I had placed my pro. I had set up my lines. I'd done all of that. And then when I got to the Himalayas and I was like, these lines are already set up. For me, it was weird. So I'm more into going to a place that's a bit more organic, where you do all of that yourself, and so more unclimbed peaks. That's my style.
I'm sure the Himalayas will offer you infinite peaks to do that. That's why it's great to hear that you're doing this, Luke. A lot of people are drawn into Everest and these peaks that are always talked about.
A lot of beautiful climbs is still waiting. They're off the beaten track, and it's kind of, why I'm focused on it is what you're just saying about the wilderness experience. Like, why we go into the mountains is to, spread out a little.
Yeah.
And so it's really neat to go out and, figure it all out. You go on an exploratory expedition to an unclimbed peak, and you need extra time. You need a little extra time and to even figure out where base camp may be, go from there. And, you've got this very grainy, basic Google Earth image that really gives you a general idea, but do you know if that boulder field is, is it giant boulders or scree or everything? It's hard to really tell until you get out there, and then it's just a really fun experience. It really is. Not to say that going to the Khumbu, I love going to the Khumbu. You meet people from all over the world, and you get to experience Sherpa culture and see these extraordinary, the highest mountain on earth, and I love it all. But definitely have a penchant for unclimbed peaks and more off the beaten track areas.
That's great.
Luke, let's get stuck into climbing. We're going to move out of skiing here. Let's tell us a little bit about Himalayan Alpine Guides. Our audience kind of knows what you guys are doing out there. Give us a brief background on that.
So I started Himalayan Alpine Guides in 2010. And the focus is on more exploratory climbing. So we're going out to attempt unclimbed peaks in all across the range. And we have people come from all ability levels and who have different goals. And so it's really working with people individually on what they like to do. Sometimes we'll have an exploratory unclimbed trip, and then, the first part of it, we'll do some intro skills for people. And then other folks on the expedition will be going for the summit ascent. And so we have all kinds of folks coming over for treks and climbs and ski trips, and with more of a focus on, the exploratory areas, even though we do offer the classics, you're saying Island Peak.
They're great. Definitely good training peaks, the Island Peak and Labuche. It's a pretty cool area.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's really nice to have the tea houses there. So it's definitely simpler that way. You can go into the Khumbu and not have to bring a big full expedition. It's nice that way.
So, look, your expeditions are focused mostly on unclimbed peaks, which means no one has summited them before. How do you rate them for your clients? For example, the Island Peak is rated, I think, moderate difficulty. The approach is well known, and this is usually with the lines already set and it has been climbed 100 times. Tell us about this process as a whole in general.
It's really, in terms of difficulty, why peaks are unclimbed is they're either really far away, like they take a couple weeks to get out to, like if we go into Mustang in like central Nepal, like we went to Arnaco Chuli, which I think still remains, or maybe two of the aspects are unclimbed. It took us, 12 days of walking to get out to base camp. So for one reason, either they're really far out there, or the other reason is they're just very technical, very difficult. And I would say in terms of what we're guiding is generally things that have big approaches, because the stuff it's like if you look at right next to Everest, there's a peak that's unclimbed. So like when you're in Everest Base Camp, you have Kangri Shar. It's right there. And we attempted it 2 years ago, me and my climbing partner, Frederick Strang. And it remains unclimbed for a reason. It is difficult and it's south facing. So each day when it catches the sun, you have rock fall. And it's just dangerous. It's a really dangerous peak. And I do think there's a line that may go on it. I won't say where. But
top secret.
Yeah, so like those are really super technical, and it's maybe something that I may be approaching as a climbing athlete, but not guiding. So I think what we guide is things that are just further out there. And so like we didn't summit 2 years ago, but we went and attempted Labuche Kong, which is one of the world's highest unclimbed peaks. The world's highest is in Bhutan, and which is called it'll come to me. The name doesn't come to me right now.
Michush. It starts with an M. Michush.
Well, there is Muchu Chish, I was going to say, which is in Pakistan. A friend of mine went and attempted it this fall, and it was not in shape. It was just blue ice. There's Muchu Chish, and then Gangar Punsum, which is in Bhutan. And that's the world's, between those two are the highest unclimbed. But I think that it's Gangar Punsum is the highest, and then it's
Labuche Kong.
Thank you. And so legally, the world's highest legally unclimbed is Labuche Kong, which is in China's Tibet.
So the other ones, legally you can't climb it, correct? You can't get the permits.
Correct.
Yeah.
So and that's kind of where climbing is in Bhutan right now. It's just off limits, which I respect. But Labuche Kong is still there waiting. It's just one valley over from Cho-Oyu to the west. And I think it's just because we've been focused on the higher peaks, on 8,000 meter peaks. That's why it's remained unclimbed and waiting there. And it's an extraordinary area, it really is. To get out there was amazing, and I really want to go back. We got up to within 200 meters of the summit. We had some winds and a couple members that were quite tired from a big push, and we decided to head down because our forecast we had gotten said strong winds were coming in the next day that were definitely frostbite potential, and so we headed down. And we had a great expedition. We didn't summit, but we had this total wilderness experience. We didn't see a soul the entire time, and climbed in this remote valley way out there, and just everybody was quite happy with the trip. But of course we want to go back and try to get the summit.
Yeah, I read a story on that. In fact, since we're talking about it, I have another clip I found. I believe this is you guys, so I'm going to pull up a quick clip. This is called Labuche Kong.
Okay.
Is that you guys? Oh, what's that? I don't
we
know.
are.
I was reading about that climb, and it sounded like it was hard as hell when I heard about all the crevasse falls and the glacier into the water. And then I came across that clip, and I go, "That must be them."
Yeah, we did have a lot of cracks. It was a hard trip. Like selective amnesia or whatever. I guess in alpinists, you don't really remember the hard times. But yeah, it was hard. It was really hard. So yeah, we had some pretty big crevasse falls, and it was tough going for sure.
It looks like that last clip, somebody's actually getting pulled out of the water.
Yeah, someone punched through, and yeah, that was a full.
Oh, man. That's a bad day.
So how many were you when you say it's a big group?
We were 5 of us. There was 5 of us. So no, there was 7 of us total.
It looks like you did some sort of helicopter approach back in there. It's way back.
We flew into Langtang, and we spent 4 days there acclimatizing from the village of Kengjin Gompa, just going up to 5,000 meters for those days. And then we flew back to Kathmandu. And we did that because we were waiting for some permitting. We got delayed trying to get into China from Nepal. It's generally how things work in China. Janet, you probably know, is just you bring the team and everything from Kathmandu because currently, even though I've done some research in Lhasa, and it doesn't seem you can really put together an expedition team in Lhasa, which I'm not sure why that is, but you start from Kathmandu and come back to Kathmandu.
Yeah, that's what we did. Just not sure how many hours is a bus ride, but when we got off in the Kudari, everything changed, It's like from really rugged Nepali side to stern, very straight side in China. And there's a huge Chinese flag that will greet you and buildings and gates. And it was just like different place. And the person who's checking your passport, look at you, look at your passport, look at you, look at your passport so many times, several times. And you don't know if you're going to smile or say hi or just going to stare at him, It's like, it was a totally different aura.
For sure.
Yeah, so going back to Labuche Kong, let's talk about that route a little bit. It looks cool. It looks, you guys nearly summited. I think I read you were 400 meters from the summit. You were saying you were
you're right.
You were pretty close. You were feeling pretty good. It sounds like maybe a couple other team members were there. But you're crunched for time and you were getting a bad weather report. But tell us about the climb in general. It hasn't been climbed yet, I presume.
It still remains unclimbed. There was a Polish team that tried it 2 years before us, and it's still waiting. I think that route will go. I think that really is the way, beyond all those crevasses, to get through those. I think our timing was good. It may work to go in the autumn season, what we did in the spring. Because you'd have more snow bridging to cover those crevasses. But either season can work. It really depends on how the snow piles up. It's there. It's waiting.
Okay. You went back in there and you said, I think you were in Latang. That's where you guys did your acclimatization. How'd that go for everybody? You probably far different sort of human being in that area than a lot of guys because you're up there a lot. But how did the rest of the team do with their altitude?
Everyone was good. One guy has climbed Cha-Oyu already. And everyone had a lot of mileage. Everyone was quite fit. I do have more mileage generally than the guests that come, just because it's what I do. I think that any of us, if you put it in the mileage, you can do it. I think it's only like 2% of the population globally cannot acclimatize. So it's just a function of, training more in terms of being fit for an expedition. But everyone did well. But maybe we could have had one more camp for getting to the summit. Maybe a bit of a push to do that final 400.
Last day was a little too big for some of the team. It was just we were really getting pushed by that forecast, which was unfortunate because we got back down and that weather never came. Oh, it hurts. It hurts. But, that's the story. That's how it goes.
Well, that's the beauty of the mountain. You really never know what's going to offer you.
Right.
Luke, you're looking for unclimbed peaks. You're going to have to give me the beta here so I can figure it out. How do you find them?
I use the journals a lot, American Alpine Journal. The Asian Alpine E-News is really good, and I could give people links to that if they like. That's a good one. It comes out of they're in Japan. I'm not sure specifically where.
Right.
And then the Himalayan Club in India puts out the Himalayan Journal, and that's out of Mumbai, and that's a good resource. And then there's a few in Europe as well. So from those, you can kind of figure out if a peak has been climbed or not. But it's also tricky to know. It's like, I think some things have been climbed that there isn't a record of.
Sure.
So
I'm sure that happens. It's just too grandiose
Yeah.
for that not to happen. What do you look for when you're picking a peak for an expedition or for something for you that's on your list? What do you look for in a route?
unclimbed is huge, and then aesthetics as well, something that just inspires me.
Right.
So it's really what I look for.
Well, I saw some of those pictures recently of the Karakoram area. And that just, I mean, blows my mind, just the photos. I'm like, it's a weird mix. To me, I don't know. I sort of could describe it like a mixture between Himalayan and Patagonia rock. It's just, I don't know. It's very dramatic, some of those shots I saw recently. It just looks so cool back in there.
It's amazing. That was my first trip in there, and I was just blown away.
Yeah, great photography, by the way. Some great shots you came back with. Really dug that.
On this climbing expeditions, Luke, do you have a team that sets the lines while the client rests or hangs in camps? Or do you do it traditionally where everyone works together to lay the lines in the alpine style, sort of speak?
It really depends on the trip. I do both. So some do an expedition style, and some we do an alpine style. Most of the 7,000, 8,000 meter, no, I won't say that. All the 8,000 meter stuff I've done was an expedition style. So and then 7,000 meters I've done alpine style and expedition style. So it really depends on the trip and what people would like to do. So we definitely do both, where we will establish camps and fix ropes in advance. And then we'll do a style where we just climb from a high camp or even from base camp with moving together on a rope in alpine style. So both styles. Definitely.
So far, all your expeditions with clients, did they go smooth, or did you ever had any problems like getting sick or attitude problems? Altitude and attitude problems.
Yeah, the mountains are, it really brings out our true nature, and it does. It's everyone, at the start of trips, I always talk to people and say, everyone's going to have a rough day on this trip. It's just being in altitude is in these harsh environments is hard. And so we just have to be patient with each other and be there for each other and communicate well. If you're not feeling well, let someone know, let me know. So in terms of attitude, absolutely. Yeah, people disagree with each other. Sometimes we disagree on expeditions, but it's all about just talking it out. And so every day at the end of the day, we all sit down in the dining tent or in the tent if we're up on the mountain and say, what could we have done better today? And everyone gets a chance to say, I thought we could have done this better, so we get to talk it out every day. And then we also talk about, I always ask people, where were we least safe today? Or did you feel unsafe today at any point? And we talk about that. People get a chance to give their perspective. So it's possible I may see something a certain way and someone else may see it a different way. And so it's always important to have, we're all in it together. And so it's really good to talk that out, because I think there's something that we talk about in snow science or in avalanche work called the expert halo. It's like the idea that this person that has more experience and has done a lot, people are prone to look to that person for the decision making and to be the person with the answers,
right?
Yes.
And that person is not infallible, so as a guide we can make mistakes, And so I always listened. It's like when I was running the snow safety program in Gulmarg, like I'd have a first year beginner ski patroller, and I would say, what do you think about this? And I would listen to his opinion. And we always go with the most conservative opinion because it's really the best way to go.
Okay.
You know? In terms of risk management, that's really what they found, is that a lot of times it was obvious there was, you know, an accident could have occurred, and maybe, you know, the leader took over and that accident happened because of that. So I think the reason why I really have had essentially a 100% safety record, I did have someone trip on an approach to a peak in Makalu, an unclimbed peak, and they dislocated their finger one year. But beyond that, we've never had a fatality, and we've never had a major accident, just because what I just said, you know, listening to people. We all listen and talk about things, and then also just being very conservative, because we're really far out there, and there is not a helicopter that comes, you know, go up in all these places.
Good on you.
Yeah,
Right.
great advice.
How difficult is it to get the permits for unclimbed peaks?
It can really, you know, it changes from decade to decade. And so that's why I think I'll continue to do this, because there's areas that aren't currently open now that may be open in a decade from now. And whereas, and vice versa, like things that weren't open 10 years ago are now open. And so it's, when those areas open up, you can apply and get that permit, and it really depends on the area. So yeah, there is a lot of work for sure involved in securing a permit from an unclimbed peak, but it is possible. So I do encourage people to try.
So how do you do it? Like, for example, you've spotted an unclimbed peak and you go to that area. Do you get in touch with local authorities first, or you just go directly to the site, or how do you do it?
It really depends on the country. Like, for example, in India, it needs to be a joint expedition.
Okay.
And so there would be national members, people from India, and then foreign members, if there's foreign members coming. There's definitely alpinists and mountaineers in India that are organizing expeditions and doing it on their own. But if there were, you know, foreigners coming in, they would need to do it as a joint expedition. And so that's the first step there. And then there's, like, for example, if you're going to the Eastern Karakoram up in northern India, you need to go to 5 governing bodies. You have the Indo-Tibetan Border Police, you have the local police, you have the IB, the Intelligence Bureau, you have India Mountaineering Foundation. And so you have to go through all those steps for India. Then in Nepal, there is a list, I believe, of unclimbed peaks, and you go through their program. So it's really best to check through the national body for permitting for unclimbed peaks in a given country.
I assume right now that you've been doing this for a couple of years already, that you have established contacts and people to get in touch way ahead of time. So I think that's really a good edge. Yeah.
Hang on, Luke. Let's take a quick break. Let us give your business a welcome sense of identity. Our thoughtful, well-crafted floating offices can embody your brand, your ethos, and help transform your business. Our floating offices for creative companies are ideal for waterside or marina locations. Our low-impact, sustainable, and energy-efficient designs offer a genuine alternative to the mundane. Let's start building. ecofloatinghome.com.
Hey, honey, I'm getting a little bit of the lockdown blues. Do you want to go out for a hike?
Yeah, that sounds great. I'm all covered up. I'm ready to go. Let's go get geared up at ROX.
Okay, great idea.
Sweet, let's go.
Okay, look, let's make a little shift here. Tell us about your most challenging expedition of your career. Climbing a 20,000-foot peak called Bhagirathi in the Himalayas when you were blanketed with 8 feet of snow in 60 hours. Wow.
Yeah.
Can you break this down for us? Give us the devil in the detail.
That was the trick with that one. That was an alpine style expedition. We were going to climb Bhagirathi 2, and we just got a big storm. The Garhwal Himalaya have had success and failure. I went to Shishapangma last year. We got a lot of snow again and did not climb the peak. We summited Shishapangma there, which is a 7,000 meter peak. But it's just this like vortex of weather sometimes. Like when systems move in there, they kind of just sit there. Like you have this air mass, this parcel of air, it moves in, and it just, when it hits the Himalaya, it just kind of sticks on those peaks jutting up and just kind of sits there and just storms. And so during that event in 2013, that big snowstorm came. We waited for a day or so, and that's when I was talking earlier in this talk about the big avalanches that I saw, that we saw come down. That was very challenging, because we were, definitely just wading through, waist deep snow for a long way. And we had all the wildlife of the valley as we were getting out of there following us out of the valley.
Wow.
When I saw that, I really realized we were experiencing something that doesn't happen there very often. When the wildlife are leaving, you know that
something's wrong.
Time to go.
Yeah. So like the blue sheep is like the main prey of the snow leopard. Were following us. I have video of it out of the valley. So we're like breaking trail. I think there was like 7 of us. We're breaking trail to get down to a point where a porter team had brought our stuff up to, and hauling loads back and forth to get down below the snow line. Behind us, there's like 60 to 100 blue sheep following our tracks to get down, because they hadn't had food and they couldn't get any calories in late fall for days. And so they were following us down. And then at night, the snow leopard was coming in and actually preying on the flock there while we were there camping. And then it was just a wild experience that someday I need to write about it, I think.
You get so much snow, I'm guessing. Are you constantly spending time digging yourself out around the, your tents, your camp? So you're not...
We were. Yeah. So we had two snow shovels with us, like avalanche rescue shovels, the little guys that carry your pack, that we were using to shovel out. And then we also had pots from the kitchen to shovel as well. I mean, it was so much snow coming, and we stayed in place, and then I decided to get us out of there. It was time to get out. So, it was just a lot of shoveling
a lot of shoveling. You're sitting in the tents and shoveling your way out, keeping yourselves from being buried, so to speak. And then when the snow eases, you're like, let's get the heck out of here. And then you got to get on top of that stuff and wade through it. And I'm guessing not everybody's got snowshoes.
We didn't have any. It was mountaineering.
So it's hard. It's hard getting out of there, eh?
True.
It really was. And you really have to keep shoveling just to keep from losing the tents, because the tents are the place of warmth and where you dry out. And so if the tents collapse and break, then it's a pretty dire situation. So a lot of shoveling just to survive.
There was no sleep.
We've heard some weird stories about some stuff in the Himalayas, like, during trekking season. And I can't remember exactly where that happened, but somewhere in the region. You've got trekkers in between tea houses, and they got caught in a snowstorm and just could never make it, buried. Yeah. They lost like 20 or 30 people. Some crazy story, man. It just came on, and you're trekking from tea house to tea house, and you just couldn't make it. It's phenomenal.
Was that in the last few years, like 2016 or 20?
Something like very recent.
I was in that as well. We were in the Annapurnas during that.
Okay.
And we were going up to climb Himalayan, which is a 7,000 meter peak there, and had that storm. And there was also some people lost in the Annapurnas.
Yeah, it's hard to fathom, snowfall to that degree. I
think that one was a cyclone, maybe.
Right, sometimes that's exactly what happened. Some typhoon came across the Himalaya and just dumped and made... Oh. Yeah, that's right. So when it hits hard, it hits pretty hard there.
Certainly.
Yeah. Hey, you got so many ascents, and you got so many skied lines now. It's phenomenal. They're talking that you're the man in the mountain. You're the new explorer of the Himalayas. But you have a really high success rate. Do you have a secret or a strategy?
It's really go when the weather's good. That's all it is. So if there's no one has symptoms of altitude illness, everyone's feeling good and things are trending, we can go for a summit attempt, then go for it. Because when the weather comes in the Himalayas, you go. And so that's really what it is.
Being there at the right time, everybody's ready to go, prepared, and when the window opens, it's do or
Go
die.
for it.
Do it.
Yeah, it's the window.
So that's what I would say. And just persistence. Just be persistent. Yeah. So.
Well, do you have a yearly circuit from Kathmandu, Nepal to Ladakh, India, and Victor, Idaho? Have you figured out how to stay in Nepal past the 6-month limitation?
Yeah, things really stuffing us up, that 6-month limitation.
I stay mostly in India. So most of the year I'm in India in the winter and summer months. So I really just come for a short period of time in the spring, a short period of time in the autumn to Nepal, but I'm mostly in Indian Himalayas. I would say. I think if I looked at I think I am, yeah, from like June through like early September, even into mid-September now, because the monsoon is running longer. At least in the last 5 years, it's been running into late September. So to mid-September, and then so I go to Nepal for October, November, and April, May, but that's been changing a little with skiing. But so I haven't really stayed in Nepal for more than 6 months since 2012 or so. I did have a flat in Kathmandu then.
Okay.
So in terms of people that stay in Nepal, people do study there. They get a student visa for studying Nepali. I do have some friends studying Nepali there, and that's how they stay for longer, I believe.
We tried to go over there a couple years ago and really get established and check the boxes, and we just couldn't pull it off. But we wanted to try and do full time over there. It just didn't happen.
How is it in India? How's the visa process in India?
For India, as an American citizen, you can get a 10-year visa.
Ooh.
Whoa.
So I have a 10-year visa to India that I think they've done that in India because they want Indian nationals that are living in the U.S. to come back more often during the year. So I think that's why that exists. And so I do have a 10-year visa to India. Cool. That's multiple entry.
Oh, wow. Nice. Far out.
Yeah, I'm curious, do you have any expeditions lined up? If they start opening up and the restrictions get eased, do you have any expeditions that are lined up, any teams that are ready to go?
Yes. For right now, we're really planning for the summer of 2021. It seems more realistic. Like it's a bit quick for the coming spring, although it may work. We'll see. I should say that's what I've been focused on in the past couple of days, but we do have expeditions planned for the spring season in Nepal. We will see what happens there. And also a ski trip to the Rongbuk. So we're going to go ski Lac Pari in May, right next to Everest, and maybe also do some skiing on the northeast ridge of Everest on some of the lower slopes there. So don't have an 8,000 meter trip planned for the spring season, but 7,000 meters for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. You've spent a lot of time from west to east in various parts of the Himalayas. Is there a particular area that captures your imagination?
It's just so diverse. I think that's why I love it. There's just so many different types of geology across the range, and then different cultures. And you have like culture going back up to 5,000 years old. It's also different that I don't really have a favorite. You know, there's just so much out there.
Yeah.
And the answer is you have to be there to know what it is.
In terms of, I guess I could list a few. Like I think we've already talked about Kashmir.
Yeah.
And what it's like there. And then Ladakh in northern India, I really love. Ladakh is it's in the rain shadow, so it's this high desert. It's very similar to the Tibetan plateau, where you have this relatively flat landscape with these at 4,000 meters, 5,000 meters around there, with these 6,000 meter peaks and 7,000 meter peaks jutting out of it that are glaciated on their north faces. And it's a really neat spot to go in summer. So I really love that area during summer. And now I'm starting to go to the Karakoram more, in which it's just everyone needs to. If you love mountains, should go to the Karakoram at least once in your life. It's just so it's just so jagged, and it looks like what I used to draw in like third grade class when I was drawing mountains. You know, it's just so spectacular. Cool.
We're definitely going to be looking you up for joining you in that part of the world. So you can
That's
count
awesome.
on us.
Okay.
You're talking about that area just recently. I want to pull up a clip because when I saw this and saw what you're doing over in that area, I thought it was really cool. Let's pull up clip 2.
Tang Plateau runs from northern India into China's Tibet. It's a flat rolling landscape at about 4,000 meters with 6,000 meter peaks and a couple 7,000 meter peaks, more than a couple, sticking out of that. Amongst those peaks are nomadic people called the Changpa. Chang means north in Tibetan, and Pa means people. So it's people of the north. Fascinating group of people who live from their sheep and goats and also yaks. They live in yak hair tents, and they move from place to place for grass. So they'll graze an area for a few weeks and then move to another area. And that happens throughout the summer months. And then when the long winter comes, the winds of the west, the westerly winds, begin in the first weeks of October.
Wow, man. That place just looks phenomenal. It looks just so beautiful and tranquil.
Really is.
Yeah.
That's nettle soup that he has there. He's been picking nettles. So like they go from those yak hair tents. They have hundreds of sheep and goat, and they go out and graze for the day beneath these giant peaks and come back. And as they're going throughout the day, they pick the nettles and they make nettle soup.
When you say nettles, like thorns, nettles?
Like stinging nettles. Yeah, when you boil it, it's just really nice.
Gets a nice texture to it. It softens it up, I hope.
It does, yeah. It's called, in Nepali, they call it sisnu. I can't remember what it's called in Tibetan right now, but it's really good. Yeah, with salt.
All right.
Yeah, it's
cool. Yeah, so that area just looks like really open and phenomenal place to hang out, and so remote.
What I love about Ladakh is you can change your plan, which is really nice in the Himalayas. Like in Nepal, you have these very deep valleys.
Right.
When you go on an expedition, you're kind of committed to that valley for the duration. If there's like a weather problem or things aren't in condition, you can kind of get shut down sometimes. Whereas in Ladakh, if things aren't quite right with a specific thing you're trying to climb or a peak, you can shift to another area, which is, I think, pretty attractive to a lot of people.
Rolls out of the high plateau. So you, pretty much you can go, hey, let's go there. Let's do that one over there and go to the other side of the plateau, so to speak.
I mean, you need a permit, but it's nice that it's kind of like China, but there's a bit more freedom to move around there. So the road system's there, and you can move from, for example, I think it was 2016 fall, 2016 autumn, we went to a peak in the Lahal Himalayas. We had a big storm. We got snowed out of that peak. So we jumped in the Jeep. We moved to the north side of the range and climbed an unclimbed peak, or an unclimbed route on another peak, and that was really nice to be able to do that when everyone was able to get a climb in and not get snowed out of a...
Right.
Wow. So you've been in Lahal. Our first training was in the Lahal Spiti area in Himachal Pradesh.
Awesome.
We've been in Manali. It's really an awesome place. Manali's awesome place, yes. And there were a lot of unclimbed peaks. Actually, one of our final training with our Indian instructors was to climb an unclimbed peak.
That was your training climb?
Yes.
For training climb.
It's a training climb.
Nice.
So we trained under the Western Himalayan Mountaineering Institute in Manali. And man, they were really strict, but they were really good teachers. They were sort of like military-ish in background, you know? Like that's how they trained us. We were running in boots early in the morning, and we were doing push-ups.
Military style.
Yes.
Doing your morning runs.
Definitely. And that's how basically the Indian military is trained. They were being sent to Everest, the high altitude soldiers. That's how they're being trained. Yeah, so they really had a very good discipline.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Luke,
Yeah.
you're climbing, you're skiing. Do you have an area where you feel more accomplished, or what you prefer more, or is it really more of a symbiotic relationship?
I think they go together quite well in the Himalayas. It's just really nice if there's snow on a slope. Why walk downhill when you can ski?
That's what I'm seeing, man.
Yeah, they work well together, and definitely have to climb a lot of routes, or most routes, to ski them. There's no infrastructure in place otherwise. Accomplished, I really think I'm just getting started. There's a lot I want to do there still. And like I was saying about from decade to decade when things are open, and then also I feel like I'm just getting started. That's kind of how it feels to me. It's definitely a lifelong pursuit.
So the local culture and history seem to draw you to the Himalaya. Do you
Certainly.
ever reflect on how your expeditions may impact these communities?
Totally. Yeah, I think that it's something to have to be careful with. Like, we definitely pack it out. Leaving no trace is a big part of what we do. We make a point to bring out our waste, stuff that aren't burnable, so we bring out our tin and other things. And also, I think that just respecting local custom. So just being aware of subtle things that may not be part of one's culture at home may be a thing there. So, as an example, like you never put your feet towards someone else in like rural Nepali culture. Little things like that that we may not be aware of from back home. So being aware of that, and making a point to do some good as well along the way. So in the first years, I was focused on water quality. And so we go into schools, and I was bringing in water filters and talking about the importance of water quality. And that was through Waves for Water, which also has funding for installing wells and doing all kinds of things in rural Nepal. And recently I've been working more on, like in Kashmir, I was working on the avalanche awareness for rural areas. Right. So as we go, doing a bit of, when there's a big storm, it's a good day not to be beneath those big drainages, as people are living a pastoral lifestyle. So when they're taking their livestock out to graze, it's a good day to use the fodder that's been gathered around the house, as opposed to going out on those big storm days, because there have been avalanche fatalities because of that. And so talking about that some. And currently we're working on a program for doing there are outfits already out there doing it, but working with to do some outreach work as we go as well. So doing some of that work too, and bringing some good. So, doing what you love, but helping out along the way. So
you've been in the Himalayas for more than a decade now. We've got a polar explorer on, Eric Larson. I don't know if you know him. I think he was the first guy to do the 3 poles, the North Pole, South Pole, and Everest. All in 1 year.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty phenomenal guy. But one of the things he talks about a lot is what he's seen in the last decade. And maybe it's more so in the polar regions, but he talks about he does see a shift in glaciers and ice pack and in climate change. Have you seen any dramatic changes in the Himalayas in the glaciers or the ice pack?
The glaciers are melting in the Himalayas, and they're saying if we get 2 degrees Celsius in terms of temperature increase, we'll see the glaciers gone by 2100, is what they're saying. And what you see is like there's these lakes forming as the glaciers melt, and the lakes form because of these ice dams. And when those ice dams break, it's called a glacial lake outburst flood, which is currently a concern, like on the Imya Glacier, the Island Peak Glacier.
Yeah, the Island Peak. There's that lake back in there behind Island Peak.
Yeah, there are some of those that are forming. That is a concern. There is some migration of people out of the Himalayas already who aren't able to graze their animals necessarily. It is occurring, and so all of these glacial valleys are like water towers for like the Indo-Gangetic Plain. So everyone living down beneath the Himalayas get their water from the Himalayas.
Mm-hmm.
And so when those melt out, it's gonna be a serious problem in terms of the water.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is occurring, and it's like on the ground, it's not this like, it's very subtle, but it is happening.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, it's interesting. I took off sailing when I was quite young, and I was 25 years ago, and I spent half of my life on the water. But that's the one thing that I noticed too, was the pollution that I saw, the dramatic change in pollution in the last 20 years on coastlines is freaky. I mean, I don't know what's happened, but when I first took off, it was pretty pristine, and the United States was keep it all cleaned up. But the further I went and the more years that went by, I stepped on some places in land. Like there's a place around Singapore where I stepped on land, and the plastic bottles and refuse was like walking through powder snow, but not powder snow. It's up past your knees and your hips.
Oh, man.
Just bizarre. And I've come across places 1,000 miles offshore, and it's a garbage pit. And you're like, how is this possible? But I really have noticed those things over the years. It's changing, and it's something for sure it's a growing problem that needs to be addressed in so many different areas. But
yeah,
certainly.
Yeah. Also, the one thing that I was curious about, Janet and I haven't really been out west, but what's the difference between the East and the West? I mean, you've got the Hindu culture and the Buddhist culture. What's the difference you find?
Western Nepal?
Yeah.
In Western Nepal, there's not really any tourist infrastructure out there. We're camping out behind schools and, finding fields where we can camp. So it's a different experience that way. It feels like more of an expedition.
Mm-hmm.
Expedition. In terms of people, it's really interesting in terms of how it's mostly Buddhist up in the higher Himalayas and more Hindu in the Terai region, the southern belt along the Nepali border. And then as you have those villages in the middle, it's really neat. You see, like you'll have a temple that has Buddhist and Hindu relics and iconography in the same temple.
Right.
Which is really neat to experience. So that's pretty fascinating to check out on approach to these peaks. And they speak a different language out there, which is what I'm speaking about in Western Nepal. I mean, it's quite a large place, but I'm speaking about the Api Saipal area, which are 7,000 meter peaks over there in that valley. They're speaking Doteli, and so we don't really know. Like we speak the national language, the guys I work with, and everyone speaks the national language in Nepal. But when they start speaking in their local language, we don't know what they're saying, which is amazing. Like to come over from Kathmandu, and like even the guys who were born in Nepal or Nepali, they're like, this feels like a different country. I do love that.
Kind of like the same here in the Philippines, we have our
different dialects. Yeah. Each island region has quite a few different dialects.
Yeah.
And Janet, she understands them.
A little bit, but some dialects I don't. But yes, we have Tagalog. But then if you go to other regions, they may have a different dialect. But in general, yes, I could understand bits and pieces of it.
Really cool.
We actually got invited on a climb here, I can't remember, 4 or 5 years ago. It was to climb the 7 highest peaks. We've got 10,000 feet.
No, we only have not even 10,000, a little short 10,000. That's our highest mountain here.
Yeah, it's cool.
Lower than
Jungle,
Lukla Airport.
Volcano climbing, some really amazing climbs. And we got flown around here, and the mission was to bring back solar energy into indigenous groups that work back or live back in these villages around some of these big mountains in the Philippines. And we went to some really remote areas and went through some really far out ceremonies, because you have to accept and go through a ceremony before you're allowed to climb a lot of these mountains with some of the indigenous people. But it was really cool cultural experience for me, and I think Janet as well, to see some of her fellow Filipinos, but still had that big communication.
We communicated in one language, is the body language. I think It's international. So look, after so much hard-earned time in the Himalayas, what has changed inside you? And if there is something that changed inside you, how do you think this might have made you different in dealing with life and your relationship in the mountains?
How has it changed me? Gosh,
Yeah.
I just want to continue what I'm doing. I'm just really, I really love to explore and discover. So I want to continue to do that and just learn more along the way. I think it's just the knowledge and, all the experiences that you have on an expedition. I mean, you have that summit, but it's not really about, it is people go because they want to summit a mountain, but it's those, what you remember, like the memories you have is that person that you speak with that has maybe knowledge of like some plants in a little area, or you see a langur monkey like cruising through the forest, and then the next day you're in waist deep snow and the highest mountains on earth. It's just all those little experiences that you have is what you remember. And how has it changed? I just want to continue doing what I'm doing. Yeah, I really
That's
love
cool.
it. So if that answers that question.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, so I'll add on to that. Being an American, and I'm an American as well, I took off quite young to travel, and I feel that my experiences changed me a bit, hopefully for the better. Do you have any takeaways you've learned from the people, the culture and the spirit in the Himalayas that you can bring back home?
it's just tremendously inspiring. The people you meet in the Himalayas, just living in these harsh, remote areas, and just with such purpose and joy. It's just so inspiring. And I think it's really just that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it seems to me that you really connect with the people, and I'm guessing that you really work at learning the culture and the names and the language. And when I watch your videos and read your articles, seems like you're really connecting there more than anything else. It's a big part of what you do. You've seen what I've seen as well, is they have this thing in the community in the mountains is where they really help each other. Even if the guy comes over the range and he doesn't even know him, he's from another village, dumping snow, you get welcomed in the house and they don't know you. It's a different thing that we grow up with.
It's very different. Yeah. It's like here we would probably, if someone came into our yard, we may,
hey, what are you doing, buddy?
Where it's like, come in for tea.
Yeah, come on in. We're here to help.
You can camp in our yard.
Sit by the stove.
Yeah.
Lovely, lovely people, and a lot to learn from them over there, I think.
With your stay there, did you ever experience planting potatoes?
Planting potatoes.
With the locals?
We did one year, actually on that Arnaco-Chuli expedition. We weren't planting, but we were helping with harvest, because 400 and something years before, some people had gone into the mountains before harvest was finished. A storm had come and destroyed the harvest before they could get it. And so they had written this in the books. The books are kept in the monastery with the monks, because the monks decide when harvest occurs and things. And so we weren't allowed to go into the mountains until the harvest was done. So we helped with the harvest, which was really neat. But I haven't planted. Have you done that with?
Well, not
Janet.
me.
This is how she paid her way up the Himalaya.
Well, not me
Everest.
personally, but my teammate. Yes. No. The reason why I raised that question is that I know Western people are very hardworking, but Nepali people, I've never seen so much hardworking.
Well, they work hard.
Yeah, they work hard, man. Like planting potatoes, they do it nonstop. They only stop for tea, like a couple of minutes, and then it just go on and on and on. And it's usually the women who plant, because the men usually go out in the mountain and guide or do a porterage. But it's the women that digs the hole, and another woman or the kids throws and shoots the potato in the hole. It's amazing.
I'd like to preface this story a bit. Janet's team, when they climbed, they have two summits. The first summit was the men in 2006, and the women were in 2007. But, they were always struggling to fund this expedition.
Yeah.
And they were on the mountain. I hear this story the first year, and funds were running low. They couldn't get their permits paid for. I think they actually got their permits on loan, if you can believe this or not. On loan, right? You pay after the climb. I've never heard of it, but they have some mission. They have to send half the team's got to go back to the Philippines and fundraise, where half the team, they said, oh, we'll just save the money, live in the mountains. And they had some of the boys live in the village with no money and had to pay their way by planting potatoes.
Yeah. Well, yes, a little bit of input in there. Yeah, we always run out of money. But at that time, there was I call this civil unrest. So back in 2006, there was civil unrest. So our climbers are already out in the Sulukhumbu acclimatizing, and the team cannot send them money because everything has stopped. Transaction has stopped, flights has stopped. There was no solid date of like, okay, when can we resume this? So the boys have to live, and so they have to find a way on how to, get a warm bed at night. So in exchange, they have to plant potatoes the whole day just to get a meal in a warm bed.
Cool.
Yeah, it was really a cool and awesome experience. So when the Himalayan 500 is complete, what will be left behind for others to gain? And how do you see its legacy?
I wanted to inspire others to get to the Himalayas. That's all it is. And the concept of me doing this is just, part of the thing is to tell the story of skiing in the Himalayas too, because I'm certainly not the first person to go there to ski. People have been skiing in the Himalayas since the farthest back I can find is in the 40s, 1940s, in the central Indian Himalayas. But I imagine it's maybe even further back. So it's also talking about the history of skiing there, and then also of ski mountaineering and also the development of ski areas there too, because there are ski areas present. So the goal is just to talk about the massive world of there's just so many different ski opportunities there. So the goal will be to tell that story.
Okay.
So it's not necessarily about me and what I'm doing, but about skiing in the Himalayas.
Far out.
So,
nice.
The goal.
So here shortly, you're going to finish your holiday in North Carolina and you're back to the Tetons. When you get back there, do you have work? Are you guiding? What's the story? What are you doing?
I work on the computer. All my work's on the computer, really getting ready for expeditions for the guide service for next year.
Mm-hmm.
And also I'll be doing athlete work. So I work for Mountain Hardware and some other companies as a ski mountaineer.
Mm-hmm.
So part of that is working with design. We're working on some new equipment for ski mountaineering and for backcountry skiing.
Cool.
And also with a ski company as well, and with a company that does a GPS watch, which is Coros Global. They're a pretty new company that is making a pretty solid watch for documenting training and documenting climbs and ski descents. And I'm pretty psyched about that.
I think I saw that in one of your posts the other day. You were out for a run with that watch, I think.
So, yeah, it is the daily I'm out training because of those brands. I'm able to do that. So outside of my guiding work, I am preparing for those larger ski projects next summer in the Karakoram. So that's what I'll be doing when I get back. And I have a dog. I have a dog now.
Yeah.
So
wow.
It's gonna be hard. It's gonna be hard to.
How does that all work? You got a dog, but you're going to be there.
Yeah, how are you gonna do that? It's gonna be hard to go back to the Himalayas. You're gonna fall in love with your dog, and you're gonna can't leave, honey.
Right now, yeah, he would be with me here right now on the East Coast, but they've shut down. Dogs are not allowed to fly right now. I think the trick is like quarantine is what I've heard. I think for some countries there's like a 6-month quarantine or something. Wow.
For the dog?
Horrible. Yeah, well, I think Australia's got some crazy law.
Wow. What kind of dog is it?
He's a husky, I think. He's a rescue. I got him from a rescue program in the valley, and his name is Wolfie. what I'm
Woofy.
calling
Woofy.
Nice.
Very soothing.
it. You guys have pets or yeah? Pets
Oh
or-
yeah, we've got our son Himalaya. Just kidding.
Son's
He's here.
Himalaya?
He's here. We usually have a studio engineer. He's sitting right beside us.
Yeah, we have a son, Himalaya.
His name is Himalaya.
Yeah.
He's sitting here running the studio this morning. We have a couple dogs. We've got 2 dogs, Marley and Mangy, which we found in the mangrove.
Yeah, it's
They're
also
rescue
rescue
dogs
dogs
as well. We rescued them. And, right outside the front door, when we have our coffee in the morning, we have a school of fish that come visit us, and they shoot water on us. They have this weird technique. They actually shoot water onto the deck to try and get your attention to feed them.
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah, it's pretty.
that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, that's so cool.
They're
Yeah.
domesticated,
Oh,
actually.
have
They're
that.
We've domesticated the
they're
fish.
spoiled now. So whenever they sense movement, they just like stare at you and just spit at you. It's like, oh, feed me. It's like,
Feed
okay,
me.
they're
Yeah,
so
it's
spoiled.
great. So yeah, we have a few pets, and
How old is Himalaya?
He's gonna turn 14 in a few days' time, actually,
Yeah,
in the
December
10th. Yeah.
he's gonna turn 14. He's big. He's big. He's bigger than both Janet and I. He's
It's almost 6.
he's getting
but-
almost 6 foot and 180 pounds. It's weird. We've been working out recently, doing the gym, the MMA. He and I have been getting into doing
Yeah.
some MMA
Cool.
recently. Yeah,
Awesome.
it's all right. I was curious about your training program. What's going on
Yeah.
right now? How you staying fit? How you getting ready? How you keeping it together for the mountains next season? What's up?
Trail running. Do a lot of trail running, just because I'm able to keep my heart rate at a consistent rate for extended period of time, and also ski touring and rock climbing. So that's really what I do, and it's around 12, 15 hours a week, mostly in zone 1 and 2, which is a lower heart rate level, and then I'll do intervals 1 day a week, like sprints, and then usually 1 or maybe 2 gym sessions a week
Cool.
to
Oh, okay.
get ready for that. So a lot of it, it's not very exciting to most people. It's just a lot of running, long mileage, and it does take a lot of time. But yeah, that's what I do. Anyway,
It's not that far. We just had a guest on about a week ago, or 2 weeks ago. His name's Jamie Ramsey. He ran from Vancouver, British Columbia to Buenos Aires.
He's averaging 40 kilometers per day.
Yeah, 40 kilometers a day. And it's 367
Crazy.
running days from Vancouver to Buenos Aires. He's the real, what do you call it? What is that,
Forrest
guys?
Gump?
Forrest Gump.
okay, that's amazing.
Yeah, it was a really great story. Really cool guy.
So, do you do any meditation aside from running and the gym and rock climbing?
I do about half an hour of meditation, just to yeah.
It's just your own style of meditation, nothing like by the books that you have learned. Or...
No, it's not really by the books. No, it's just focusing on the breath. Really.
Okay.
Yeah,
But-
cool.
That's great. So I'm also curious about your Himalayan alpine guides. Is your team mostly Americans, or you have a local counterpart in Nepal or in India whenever you go?
I work with a crew of 4 guys. So 2 guys are Tibetans that live in India, and we try to stay together year round for expeditions. And then 1 guy is Sherpa from the Khumbu region below Lukla, and then 1 guy is from the Manali area. That's kind of the core crew, and we generally try to stay together when we can. Like sometimes I know that Indians are not allowed to go to Pakistan, so that doesn't work, but in the rest of the Himalayas we stay together.
Right.
Do they have a chance to go to your country, to US, or you're the only one who goes there?
I go here generally in November, December that's kind of the quiet season for the Himalayas. So that's when it's the driest. There's the least amount of snow. And like I was saying in that little video we watched earlier, the westerly winds come in. So November and December aren't the best months for climbing up high. And so that's really a time period for all of us to be home with family and get ready for the next season. So.
Oh, that's good. We have a lot of porters as well and guides. They start off meeting other people from the Western countries and other countries in the world. And during the off season in the Himalayas, the clients sponsor them to go to Europe or France or the United States, and that's how they get to travel. And I think that's really very, very awesome, because they also get the chance to travel and be out in the world and be really prolific. Yes. So that's good.
We've got some, not too many of them get that lucky opportunity, but we have some friends that have got an agreement now that works really well for them, where they spend seasons in the Himalayas, and some of them transfer over to the Alps and guide over there. So they're really westernized and educated, but got some real cool stuff going on.
Yeah, absolutely. What's going on with that program is tremendous. Yeah, the IMGA guide program for Nepal, and to bring that back to the Himalayas and have that level of professionalism is huge. So
it's cool to see that change. Hey, Luke, what a great conversation we're having. I want to play one last video clip here before we wrap it up, because we're all about bringing skiing to the Himalaya. One more.
Awesome.
Look at that.
Woo!
Oh, this section here. That's great. Oh yeah, this one right here. This looks phenomenal.
Wow.
Look at that. Cool, man. Skiing in the Himalayas, bring it on.
Yeah, totally. That was Langtang. That was 2 years ago during the deepest winter there in more than 20 years. It was pretty special to fly into Kathmandu that year and see snow on the rim of Kathmandu Valley. And I've never seen that. And people talking to locals in Kathmandu, they're like, yeah, we never see snow here in the valley. So that was a pretty unique winter. Of course, it meant a lot of shoveling for a lot of folks. And we were shoveling out in Langtang during that period of skiing. But special place for sure.
Wow, far out.
I'm curious, is there a difference between a mountain high and skiing high? I can just imagine there's a high, like a Zen feeling whenever you ski. It's just like running, right? So you feel that high and you're in the zone. So is there a difference in climbing than in skiing?
Well, I think it's the feeling of skiing is just tremendous. I mean, to just to be in a setting like that, to experience the Himalayas and to be skiing snow like that, just the whole thing is just, I think it's really as good as it gets for me. It's just, it has it all there. And so, gosh, how would you explain that? Like the physiology behind it? Or the...
No.
Yeah, I think it.
No, the reason is I haven't I haven't experienced
She
skiing.
hasn't
so
skied. She's
I
not
don't
skiing.
know, but I've seen. Yeah, but I've talked to Todd, and I have instructors in New Zealand, and they're really big in skiing as well as there, and they describe it like it's a zen, it's a moment, it's tranquility, it's a solace inside you, like that high. So
I saw some.
Must be good.
I saw some footage of you a few weeks back. I think this was recent footage, and you were skiing in some pretty light powder, pow. And I've been lucky. I grew up in the Cascades, so it was a bit heavier and thicker, and I had fewer powder days. But I made it over to Colorado and Steamboat Springs a few times when I skied in that, and it's hard to explain, but it's like skiing in heaven. I don't know. There is a difference in the snow
Yeah, see?
conditions that
The powder and
changes the way it feels.
Yeah, it's definitely something that people should check out. Yeah, going with gravity and flowing down a slope in nice high quality powder snow is it's a very special experience and very different than climbing and going against gravity. But yeah, it's a gravity sport, and it's a lot of fun. So people should check it out if they haven't. So
Luke, I think we're running out of time here, and we're going to wrap it up. I want to thank you, for joining us. We're really appreciative that you came and joined our show. We want to thank you for all the great beta and stuff and information you've given us. And we're hoping we can join you one day on an expedition. We'd love to come on an unclimbed peak with you. So let's stay in touch.
Be psyched to climb with you guys and ski and let's definitely talk more. Thanks for having me on your show.
Oh, thank you.
Far out, brother.
Thank you.
Cool.
We really enjoyed your stories and the insights that you shared. Thank you very much for your time.
Awesome. Have a good evening, guys. Thanks a lot.